Police sirens wail as a tow truck backs up toward a luxury Rolls-Royce Phantom. In the stone parking lot of the Greenwich Downs Club, Devin Cole stands silently, holding his daughter Zoe close. He faces false accusations from Victoria Thorne, the arrogant membership manager. Her racial bias makes her believe a black dad in a worn-out sweater has no right to touch this supercar. Devin wants to protect his daughter from the fear of police violence, staying calm to let the law speak. Where will this unfair fight between a stripped citizen and those abusing power go when lawyer Franklin Cross arrives with his leather briefcase? But 2 hours before that tow truck ever showed up, the morning had started soft and warm. Devin Cole stood in his kitchen at 7:30 in the morning. Sunlight came through the window over the sink. He wore a thin gray sweater with a small hole near the left cuff. The sweater was old. He never bought a new one, even though he could buy 1,000 of them. A wooden spoon moved slow circles in a pot of oatmeal. Steam rose into the quiet kitchen air. Devin liked mornings like this. No noise. No rush. Just him and his daughter, Zoe, getting ready for a good day. Zoe was 8 years old. She had bright round eyes and 2 small braids her father had done himself the night before. She sat at the counter, swinging her feet, holding a piece of paper close to her chest. "Dad, look what I made," she said. She turned the paper around. It was a crayon drawing. 2 stick shapes stood next to a black car. The car had big circle wheels colored in dark gray crayon. One figure was tall. One was small. Both were smiling with crooked crayon mouths. "That's us," Zoe said. "That's you and me next to the car." Devin smiled and knelt down to her eye level. "That might be the best drawing I've ever seen," he said. "I got first place in the school art contest," Zoe said, her voice full of pride. "Ms. Alvarez put a gold star on it." "I know, baby. I saw the star," Devin said. "That's why today is a celebration day." He took the drawing gently and walked to the garage. The Rolls-Royce Phantom waited there, its black paint deep and shiny like still water at night. This car cost $520,000, but Devin never talked about the price. To him, it was just a good, safe car for driving his daughter around. 10 years ago, Devin owned nothing like this. He grew up in a small apartment above his father's repair shop. He shared one bedroom with 2 brothers. Money was tight most months, but his father always found a way to smile through it. Devin studied hard in school. He worked 2 jobs through college, saving every dollar he could. Late at night, he read books about business and money, teaching himself things no one around him could explain. Slowly, piece by piece, he built a small investment fund with a handful of trusted friends. That small fund grew, over the years, into Aegis Equity Partners, a company now worth billions. Devin never forgot where he started. He still drove past his father's old shop sometimes, just to remember. He pressed a strip of blue tape onto the back of Zoe's drawing. With care, he stuck it onto the dashboard, right where he could see it every time he drove. "Now you're always riding with me," he told her. Zoe giggled and climbed into the back seat, her pink backpack bouncing on her shoulder. Before they left, Devin glanced at his phone. An email sat open from his finance team. It showed the balance of a small charity fund he ran quietly, without telling any person at his company. The number read $4,217.83. That money went to art programs for kids in public schools, kids just like the ones in Zoe's class. Devin didn't run this fund for attention. No one outside his closest staff even knew his name in connection to it. He simply thought a little help could go a long way for a child with a paintbrush and a big imagination. He closed the email and slid the phone into his pocket. "Ready, sweet pea?" he asked. "Ready," Zoe shouted. They pulled out of the driveway just after 8. Fairfield County looked peaceful in the early light. Big oak trees lined the road. Leaves had just started turning orange at the tips. Devin drove slow and easy, one hand loose on the wheel. Zoe hummed a song from her favorite cartoon in the back seat. This was supposed to be a simple celebration. Pancakes, blueberries, a little joy for a job well done. No one in that car had any idea what was waiting for them at Greenwich Downs. The club came into view a little after 9 in the morning. Stone pillars marked the entrance, wrapped in ivy that had grown for decades. Long rows of expensive cars sat parked in neat lines polished and gleaming under the sun. Devin steered the Phantom into a spot near the front, close to where valet drivers usually stood. He stepped out first, then walked around to open the door for Zoe. She hopped down, her pink backpack swinging, her sneakers hitting the stone ground, with a happy little bounce. A few heads turned. Members walking toward the entrance slowed their steps. Their eyes moved from the car to Devin's plain gray sweater, then back to the car again. Something about the picture didn't match in their minds. Near the glass double doors, a woman stepped out to meet the morning crowd. Her name was Victoria Thorne. She was 48 years old, and she carried herself like she owned the ground beneath her heels. Her hair was cut into a sharp, neat bob that framed her face. Her navy blue suit fit her perfectly, tailored to every curve and line. Victoria held a tablet in one hand, scrolling through a list of club members, with a serious, set face. She looked up out of habit, just checking who had arrived. Her eyes landed on Devin, a black man, a plain gray sweater with a small hole in the sleeve. A young girl with a pink backpack, standing next to a Rolls-Royce Phantom worth over $500,000. Her eyebrows pulled together. Something inside her clicked, fast and certain, the way old beliefs click, into place without asking permission. In her mind, the math simply did not add up. A man dressed like that should not be standing next to a car like that. She didn't say a word yet. She just watched, her jaw tight, her fingers gripping the edge of her tablet a little harder than before. Victoria had worked at Greenwich Downs for 11 years. She started as a front desk worker and climbed her way up, step by step, into her role as membership manager. She was proud of that climb. She thought she earned every bit of her position through hard work and sharp judgment. But somewhere along the way, Victoria had learned to judge people fast before they said a single word. She trusted her first look at a stranger more than she trusted their actual words. She called this instinct. Really, it was just an old habit, built from years of quiet, unquestioned bias. She thought she was guarding the club's standards. In truth, she was only guarding a narrow idea of who deserved respect and who did not. Devin didn't notice her stare, not at first. He was busy holding Zoe's hand, walking her toward the entrance, talking softly about pancakes and blueberry syrup. "You really think they have the blueberry ones today?" Zoe asked. "They always have the blueberry ones on Sundays," Devin said. "That's a Cole family tradition now." They walked past Victoria and into the dining room, without another word between them. But Victoria's eyes followed the back of Devin's gray sweater the entire way, sharp and unblinking, like a hawk marking its next move. The dining room felt like something from an old movie. White linen covered every table. Soft classical music drifted from hidden speakers in the ceiling. Waiters moved quietly between tables, refilling water glasses, without a single clink of glass on glass. Devin and Zoe sat near a window, with a view of the golf course outside. Zoe's plate arrived stacked high, with blueberry pancakes, whipped cream melting slowly along the edges. Victoria walked past their table twice during breakfast. She always said she was checking on service standards, but her eyes lingered a little too long on their table each time. Zoe noticed. Kids always notice more than adults think they do. "Dad," she whispered, leaning close. "Why does that lady keep looking at us like she's mad?" Devin squeezed his daughter's small hand gently under the table. He kept his voice light and warm, the way he always did, when trying to protect her from the ugly parts of the world. "Don't worry about her, baby," he said. "She's just doing her job. Today is about you and your gold star. Eat your pancakes." Zoe smiled and went back to her plate, syrup sticking to her fingers, totally unaware of the storm quietly building a few tables away. Devin chose to let it go. He had learned long ago that anger rarely solved anything in rooms like this. He would rather protect Zoe's joy than fight a battle over a stranger's judgmental glance. Some fights, he thought, were better left unfought, at least until they truly mattered. But as he sat there, watching his daughter enjoy her breakfast, his mind drifted back for a moment to his father, Marcus Cole. Marcus had been a mechanic his whole working life. His hands were always stained with motor oil, his fingernails never fully clean no matter how hard he scrubbed. But he stood taller than any man Devin had ever known, even bent over an engine in a dirty garage. Devin could almost hear his father's voice now, steady and sure. True wealth is not in what you possess, Marcus used to say. It's in how you protect your peace and the people you love. Those words had followed Devin through every boardroom, every deal, every quiet insult he'd learned to let pass without a fight. They followed him now, sitting at this table, watching Victoria Thorne pace back and forth with narrowed eyes. Devin remembered one cold winter night in the old garage when he was maybe 12 years old. A wealthy customer had come in, looked at the small shop, and laughed at his father's worn overalls. Marcus never raised his voice that night. He simply fixed the man's car, charged him a fair price, and sent him on his way with a polite smile. Later, alone with Devin, his father said something the boy never forgot. "Let your work speak," Marcus told him. "Let your patience speak louder than your pride." He looked down at Zoe. She proudly held up her small gold trophy from the art contest. She turned it in the light like a tiny treasure. In that moment, Devin knew something clearly. His job today wasn't to prove his worth to any person in this room. His job was to protect his daughter's sense of pride and safety, no matter what judgment surrounded them. Breakfast ended around 10:30. Devin paid the bill, left a generous tip, and came to gather Zoe's things. Her small hand slipped into his as they walked back out, through the lobby, out into the crisp autumn air. Outside, the wind had picked up slightly. Rose bushes near the entrance swayed gently, their trimmed petals dropping quiet red flakes onto the marble walkway. Devin walked Zoe toward the parking lot, thinking only about the drive home and maybe a stop for ice cream. He pulled out his key and pressed the button. The Rolls-Royce chirped once, unlocking with a soft click. That's when the sharp sound of heels hitting stone echoed across the lot. Victoria Thorne moved fast, faster than her usual composed walk. She crossed the distance between the entrance and the car in seconds, stepping directly in front of the driver's side door, blocking Devin's path totally. She crossed her arms over her chest. Her eyes were narrow, set, cold. "Stop right there," she said, loud enough for several nearby members to hear. "Tell me just who this car belongs to and what you think you're doing with it." For a moment, the whole parking lot seemed to pause. Conversations near the valet stand quieted. A few members turned their heads toward the sound of Victoria's raised voice. Devin felt Zoe's grip tighten around his fingers. He looked down at her worried little face, then back up at Victoria, calm and steady despite the challenge in front of him. There was no going back now. Whatever waited on the other side of this moment, Devin would have to walk through it, with his daughter's small hand held safely in his. By now, a small crowd had came together near the edge of the parking lot. A few members pretended to check their phones, but their eyes kept flicking back toward Devin and Victoria. Curiosity mixed with judgment hung heavy in the morning air. An older man in a golf polo shirt stood near the valet stand, arms crossed, shaking his head slowly. He didn't say a word, but his eyes stayed locked on the scene, unwilling to look away. A young mother pulled her son closer to her side, whispering something quiet into his ear. The boy stared at Zoe with wide, worried eyes, sensing something was very wrong. No one stepped forward to help. No one spoke up for Devin, or for the little girl gripping his hand. They simply watched, the way people often do, when trouble finds someone else instead of them. Victoria didn't wait for an answer. She kept talking, her voice climbing louder with every word. "A man in a sweater like that does not own a phantom," she said, shaking her head slowly. "So why don't you tell the truth? Are you the driver who took this car without permission? Or did you bring this little girl along just to make yourself look less suspicious?" Zoe flinched at the words. She pressed herself closer against her father's side, her small arms wrapping around the strap of her pink backpack like it was a shield. Devin kept his face calm, though something tightened deep in his chest. His voice stayed level and low, careful not to scare his daughter any further. "Ma'am, this is my car," he said. "This is my daughter. We just finished breakfast, and we are leaving now, totally within our rights." Victoria let out a short, sharp laugh, the kind meant to embarrass more than amuse. "Sure," she said, pulling her phone from her jacket pocket. "We'll let the police figure that part out." She dialed quickly, pressing the phone to her ear with a satisfied look crossing her face. When the call connected, her tone shifted into something falsely polite, though her words were anything but fair. "Yes, hello. I'd like to report a suspicious individual," she said. "A black man, dressed shabby, behaving in a threatening manner. I believe he may be attempting to kidnap a child and possibly stole a luxury vehicle." Devin closed his eyes for half a second, drawing in a slow, steady breath. He knew now, with painful clarity, just who Victoria Thorne represented. Not just one rude woman having a bad morning. She stood for something bigger, an old, ugly guest that refused to die quietly. He looked down at Zoe. He gave her hand one more gentle squeeze. Only one thing truly mattered right now: keeping safe her. Nothing else. 10 minutes passed like slow, thick honey. Then, at 10:47, the sharp wail of a police siren cut through the quiet morning air. A patrol car from the Fairfield County Police sped into the lot. Tires crunched over loose gravel near the entrance. The car came to a stop directly behind a Rolls-Royce. A few nearby valets froze in place, watching the scene unfold like a movie they never expected to see in real life. Deputy Miller stepped out of the vehicle. His hand rested casually near his holster, though his eyes were locked hard on Devin from the moment his boots hit the pavement. He walked straight past Devin at first, heading toward Victoria instead. She gave him a small, confident nod, as if the two of them already knew just how this would go. Miller then turned toward Devin, his voice sharp and commanding. "Stand still. Hands where I can see them," he said. "I need your identification right now." Devin raised his hands slowly, keeping his movements slow and deliberate. He reached carefully into his back pocket and handed over his wallet, without a single word of protest. Miller snatched it roughly, flipping it open to check the driver's license inside. His eyes scanned the details, though his expression hardly changed, as if the information didn't matter as much as the guess he had already made. "I've given you my license," Devin said, his voice steady despite the tension coiling tighter in his chest. "But I won't allow a search of my vehicle without a warrant or clear evidence of a crime." Miller's jaw tightened. A vein pulsed faintly near his temple. It clearly frustrated him. A black man in a worn sweater knew the law well enough to push back, and he did it calmly, without ever raising his voice. The tension in the parking lot climbed higher, with every passing second, thick enough to feel on the skin. By 11 o'clock, the sun sat high and warm over Greenwich Downs. But the heat in the parking lot had nothing to do with the weather. A tow truck rumbled into the lot, its heavy chains rattling as it backed slowly toward the front of the Rolls-Royce. Metal scraped against metal, with every inch it moved closer. Victoria crouched down slightly, bringing her face level with Zoe's scared eyes. "Your daddy is going to jail for theft," she said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "And you, sweetheart, you'll be going straight to child services this afternoon." Zoe's face crumpled instantly. Tears spilled down her cheeks. She buried herself into her father's side. Her small fists gripped the fabric of his sweater. It was the only solid thing left in her world right now. Nearby, an older woman in a tennis skirt covered her mouth with one hand, watching the child cry with growing concern. "Hook the chains up," Miller barked at the tow truck driver. "Get this vehicle back to the impound lot." This was, without question, the darkest moment of Devin's day. Every muscle in his body screamed to react, to shout, to push back hard against the injustice unfolding in front of him. One wrong move, though, one raised fist or angry word, could easily give Miller the excuse he seemed to be waiting for. Devin took a slow breath, deep and deliberate. He lowered himself down to one knee, bringing his eyes level with his daughter's tear-streaked face. He wrapped his arms around her small, shaking body and held her close. "I'm right here," he whispered against her hair. "No one is taking you anywhere. I promise you that." While he held her, Devin quietly slipped his phone from his pocket, angling it just enough to record everything happening around them. Miller's rough handling of his identification. Victoria's cruel words aimed at a scared 8-year-old. Every second captured cleanly on camera, building an undeniable case against the two adults abusing their power. Devin's calm, lawful patience had done something neither Victoria nor Miller expected. It made them careless. Comfortable in their assumed control, they kept talking, kept acting, kept revealing just who they were in front of the club's own high-definition security cameras. Not far away, unseen by anyone in the parking lot, Devin's phone showed a call already connecting to his personal legal office. 15 minutes had passed since he first dialed, each second building a case that would soon change everything. Victoria and Miller, fully convinced of their power, kept making comment after comment steeped in prejudice. Every biased word, every unlawful move to search the car, without permission, played out clearly in front of the club's rooftop cameras. The reward building quietly in Devin's favor wasn't money. It was proof. Undeniable, recorded proof, strong enough to end Victoria's career and strip Miller of his badge fully. Devin stood a little straighter now, his eyes meeting Victoria's, with something different than before. Not fear anymore. Something closer to quiet pity, for a woman standing at the edge of a cliff she didn't even know was there. Just then, heavy footsteps rushed across the parking lot. Reginald Thorne, Victoria's husband and the club's chief operating officer, came storming toward the scene, his face twisted in anger and self-importance. He planted himself beside his wife, glaring at Devin with open contempt. "I run this entire club," Reginald announced loudly, his voice carrying across the lot for maximum effect. "I want this man and his daughter removed from the land right away. Take that car straight to police impound. We don't welcome people who don't belong here." Security guards moved quickly, forming a tight line around the Rolls-Royce, physically blocking any chance of it driving away. The barrier now wasn't just legal red tape. It was raw administrative power, wielded by two people determined to crush Devin in front of the entire club. Reginald turned to the small crowd, puffing his chest out with pride. He liked an audience. He liked the sound of his own voice echoing off the stone walls. For years, nobody at Greenwich Downs had dared question him. He assumed this morning would be no different. For a moment, it looked like nothing could stop what was coming. Then, at 11:15, a sleek black SUV pulled up sharply beside the patrol car, tires barely making a sound against the smooth pavement. The door opened, and Franklin Cross stepped out. He was the sharp, senior lawyer for Aegis Equity Partners, carrying a black leather briefcase in one steady hand. Two legal assistants followed close behind him, each holding thick folders stamped with red confidential seals. Franklin's voice cut through the tense air like a blade. "Stop that tow right away," he said firmly. "This vehicle is not going anywhere." Reginald let out a mocking laugh, waving a dismissive hand toward the newcomer. "His lawyer, is it?" Reginald said. "Waste of time. This club belongs to Apex Hospitality Management, and I have full power to remove any person I choose." Franklin didn't flinch. He calmly opened his briefcase and pulled out a thick legal document, the ownership transfer paperwork, freshly signed and sealed. He began reading aloud, his voice steady and clear enough for the entire stunned crowd to hear. As of 4:30 last Friday afternoon, Franklin said, Aegis Equity Partners completed the acquisition of 75% controlling shares in Apex Hospitality Management. He paused just long enough for the words to sink in before continuing. "Mr. Devin Cole, the man you have both been insulting all morning, is the founder, CEO, and majority shareholder of Aegis Equity Partners," Franklin said. "He is the ultimate owner of this entire club." The color drained instantly from Victoria's face. Her tablet slipped from her fingers, hitting the marble ground and cracking sharply across the screen. Reginald stood frozen, his mouth opening and closing without a single word coming out. Franklin continued without pause, handing over two formal termination letters, one for each of the Thorns. "Effective right away, both of you are fired," he said. "You broke serious rules of ethics. You put this company at legal risk. You have 24 hours to leave the staff home on this land." Deputy Miller took a slow step backward, his earlier confidence totally gone. He hurried to return Devin's driver's license. His hand shook slightly. Franklin mentioned filing a formal complaint with the Department of Justice. The complaint would cover possible civil rights violations by the Fairfield County Police. The parking lot fell into a strange, heavy silence, broken only by the distant sound of wind moving through the old oak trees overhead. Devin didn't say a single word of revenge or mockery toward either Victoria or Reginald. That simply wasn't who he was. He gently opened the door of the Rolls-Royce and lifted Zoe into her seat, buckling her seatbelt with careful, practiced hands. Her pink backpack found its usual spot on the seat beside her. Before climbing in himself, Devin reached forward. He smoothed out the small crayon drawing still taped to the dashboard. Zoe had made it just that morning. It showed two happy stick shapes beside a black car. That drawing, more than any building or bank account, felt like the real treasure of this entire day. It stood for something Franklin's paperwork could never fully capture. It was the simple, unshakable love between a father and his daughter. It was the dignity neither of them had ever truly lost. Devin turned once toward the silent crowd still came together near the entrance. He gave a small, respectful nod, calm and dignified, before finally climbing into the driver's seat. The Rolls-Royce Phantom pulled smoothly out of the parking lot. It glided down the stone driveway. There was no screech of tires. There was no honk of a horn. Behind them, Victoria and Reginald stood totally alone. The very members, who once smiled and waved at them, now turned away. They whispered quietly among themselves. Their earlier respect turned into cold, uncomfortable silence. News of what happened at Greenwich Downs spread quickly through the tight social circles of Fairfield County. By that evening, calls were already coming in from other club board members. One by one, they quietly distanced themselves from the Thorns. They wanted nothing to do with what happened that morning. Reginald tried calling old business contacts, hoping someone might step in to smooth things over. No one answered. The same people who once respected his title now avoided his calls entirely, unwilling to be connected to a scandal already spreading fast. Victoria sat alone in their staff apartment that night, staring blankly at the cracked screen of her tablet. The device still worked, technically, but something about it felt broken beyond simple glass. It felt like the version of herself she had built her whole identity around. She thought back to the confident woman who had walked toward Devin that morning, tablet in hand, certain of her own power and judgment. That woman felt like a stranger now, someone Victoria barely recognized in the quiet aftermath of her own choices. In the days that followed, lawyers for Aegis Equity Partners reviewed the security footage carefully. Every camera angle told the same story. Victoria's cruel words to a scared child. Deputy Miller's rough search without a warrant. Reginald's loud, public order to remove a family from the land. The footage became part of a formal legal file. Franklin Cross made sure of that. He thought people in power should answer for how they use it. That was true, most of all, when it hurt someone who did nothing wrong. Reginald tried to argue his case at first, insisting his actions were simply about protecting club policy. No one wanted to hear it. The words rang hollow next to a video of a scared 8-year-old girl crying into her father's sweater. Deputy Miller faced his own internal review at the Fairfield County Police Department. Investigators studied his body camera footage frame by frame. They found no evidence of any crime by Devin, only a rushed decision built on nothing more than appearance and guess. Meanwhile, across town, Devin's evening looked totally different. He sat at the kitchen table with Zoe, helping her glue tiny paper stars around the edges of a new drawing. This one showed a rainbow stretching over their house. 3 stick shapes stood beneath it. They were Devin, Zoe, and a small dog they had been talking about adopting. "Dad?" Zoe said, not looking up from her careful gluing. "Is that lady going to be okay?" Devin paused for a moment, thinking carefully about how to answer his daughter honestly, without adding fear or anger into her young heart. "I don't know, baby," he said gently. "But I hope she learns something important from today. I hope she learns to treat people with kindness, no matter what they're wearing or what car they drive." Zoe nodded slowly, seeming satisfied with that answer, before going right back to her stars. Over the following weeks, the story of what happened at Greenwich Downs quietly reshaped the club itself. The board brought in new leadership, people set on fairness and respect rather than outdated guess about who belonged and who didn't. Devin, now the controlling owner, chose not to make grand public statements or dramatic changes overnight. Instead, he quietly funded a new scholarship program. Through the club, offering memberships and community access to local families who could never normally afford it. He named the program after his father. He called it the Marcus Cole Community Fund. It was a tribute to the man who taught him that real wealth lives in kindness, not appearances. Word of the new scholarship program spread through the town within weeks. Local families who once thought a place like Greenwich Downs was closed to them began signing up, cautious at first, then hopeful. One mother wrote Devin a letter, thanking him for giving her son a chance to swim in a real pool for the first time. Devin read it twice. He folded it carefully. He kept it in his desk drawer, next to a photo of Zoe holding her gold trophy. The club itself started to feel different. Staff greeted every guest the same way now, no matter what they wore or what car they drove. New training programs taught workers to treat every single visitor with equal respect and warmth. Zoe's crayon drawing eventually left the dashboard of the Rolls-Royce. Devin had it framed instead. He hung it proudly in his home office. Right beside it sat a small, worn photograph of his father. Marcus stood in his old mechanic shop, hands stained with oil, smile wide and proud. Every morning after that, before leaving for work, Devin would glance at both pictures side by side. It brought back where he came from. It brought back who he wanted to remain. That never changed, no matter how large his company grew. Some evenings, Zoe would ask him to tell the story of that day at the club. She loved the part with the police car. She loved the part with the tow truck. She loved the part with the lawyer and his leather briefcase. Devin always told it the same calm way, careful never to make it sound like a story about revenge. Instead, he told it as a story about patience. It was about protecting the people you love. It was about staying true to yourself, even when the world looks at you the wrong way. Some people will judge you before they even know your name, he told her one night, tucking her into bed. But that says everything about them and nothing about you. Zoe smiled sleepily, pulling her blanket up close. I like our story, Dad, she murmured. Even the scary parts. Why do you like the scary parts? Devin asked softly. Because you were brave, Zoe said. And you kept me safe the whole time. Devin kissed her forehead gently and turned off the lamp beside her bed. Me too, sweet pea, he whispered into the quiet room. Me too. Outside, the autumn wind moved softly through the trees lining their street. It carried the last golden leaves of the season. They drifted slowly, peacefully, toward the ground below. And somewhere across town, inside an empty staff apartment, a cracked tablet sat forgotten on a table. Soon that apartment would belong to someone else entirely. The dark screen reflected nothing at all.